Today I'm finally gonna show you my craft room, or really craft corner, because this room is also my boyfriend's office. And I kind of needed to do this tour right now because I'm actually moving. I'm not a super organized person, but I've definitely gotten better in the last couple years. There are a couple things in this room that are well organized and help me out a lot. And there are other things in this room that are kind of just big hindrances. And the biggest one being this big old desk. So this is one of those desks that's in that style where there's a bookshelf on one side and then a big table. This was a hand-me-down from my mom. It's a couple years old. It actually broke when we moved in and we had to screw the table legs back on. But for me, it basically functions as a storage unit for a bunch of stuff and my cutting table. I watch a lot of sewing room tours and stuff, and everybody's got really nice, fancy, big, giant cutting tables. And that would absolutely not fit in this room. I can't cut like skirts on this table, but I can definitely cut smaller things. The other thing on this part of the table is my Brother SE400, which is a combination embroidery and sewing machine. And you may have noticed I hardly ever use the embroidery aspect of this machine. It's just because the software that I have that I did have to pay for is kind of shit, honestly. It's also on like a really old laptop that I'll show you. It's actually down here. And that laptop is just old and really annoying to use. Even though digitizing a thing is the easy part for me, because as we know, Illustrator is my bitch. Actually getting that into an embroidery file, and an embroidery file that actually looks nice, is a really annoying process with this specific machine. So it's mostly a sewing machine for me, and it's a pretty nice sewing machine. It does not compare to the new main machine, the FOF, which was my grandma's, but it is a fine machine. It was also a hand-me-down from my mom. Now we get to the part of the table that I f***ing hate. Okay, I know IKEA has desks like this, but I don't think this one is IKEA. And I hate this setup. I hate this table being attached to this bookshelf. And you wanna know why? It's f***ing impossible to get on that side. Getting anything under the desk is a nightmare. And then the other part is just a symptom of it being old, in that the little things that are supposed to hold up this shelf here are gone, and so it's just sitting on bolts, and so every time I try to get something, the whole shelf falls out. So every section of this top shelf is garbage, and I hate it. To give you an idea of what is in these, so this one here that I cannot reach is my sequins, my beads. I keep a lot of that stuff in there. Up here on the one that will absolutely fall down if I try to take it out, like you see that? This one has all the grommets that came with my grommet setter, and then I also have all the grommets that I've like bought in the past in there. And then down here, this is the only thing I can actually have access to, so I try to keep it like the important stuff. I have my pins and my wonder clips. And then under the table, let me take you under the table. Okay. This is why I hate this desk. So down here, I have a bunch of shit. So this bin, I think it used to go in here, but it just doesn't fit anymore. So what's in it is these are headphones that I use for this microphone that I should probably use right now because I'm kind of doing this chaotically. This one's kind of a catch-all. There's embroidery stabilizer here, a corset that I haven't finished, and then a bunch of kind of random stuff like wire. Oh my god, it's the emergency bag I made for Miku. I've been looking for these scissors for 2 weeks. Yeah, there's no organization to this one at all. It's just kind of stuff that ended up in here. This one similarly is kind of just stuff that ended up in here, but I think this one is mostly yarn and rope. Yeah, yarn and rope. It's a whole thing of yarn and rope. And then this one is actually organized. It is my embroidery stuff. So I have my embroidery cart for the machine up there, and then all of I have multiple like hoops. See, that's the other thing I hate about this is the way this is set up. And then like I said earlier, I have this really old laptop. I didn't have a PC at the time, and I asked my older brother if he wanted to give me his old laptop, and he was like, "You don't want it. The keyboard doesn't work and it needs a mouse." And I was like, "That's fine. I just need it for embroidery software." Yeah, I really didn't want it because the keyboard doesn't work, so I have to keep it with the keyboard, which then keeps this thing falling out all the time. So that sucks. And then here I have these like bead holder thingies. This one's kind of random, and this one is literally all red beads. I bought an extra one when I made the strawberry dress, and this is all the beads from the strawberry dress that ended up going a lot onto Miku as well. This is a whole thing of lace. lace and ribbon. This one says it's bias tape, but is also a bunch of lace. This is a thing of more tools. I do keep most of my tools up there, but this is just more tools. And then this is a whole thing of zippers. I buy cheap zippers in big packets on like eBay and Amazon because I cannot be bothered to go buy a zipper every time I need one. And then this is like a, you know, you've seen these. One of these doodads. This has all the, well, this just has feet that I don't use in it mostly because all the other feet are in the desk. That is this big desk. Do I recommend a big desk like this? No. Do I recommend a table this size? Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need like a huge cutting table for sewing. I think you can get away with a table about this size. Table-wise, this desk is fine, but I hate the bookshelf on it. And when I have a new sewing room, I'm just going to be getting a regular ass table because this, I hate this. I hate getting under the desk to do stuff. So no more of this, okay? Let's move on to the desk that I actually really like. Okay, while this one was a fake IKEA desk, this one is real IKEA. This is an IKEA Micke? Pretty sure I should learn that before I go to Sweden. I think it's Micke. I bought this years and years ago, and before I had it, I actually mostly sewed on the floor. When I was out of college, I didn't own any furniture. I didn't own a bed or a desk or anything, and I had a desk that was one of those like Walmart collapsible tables. Yeah, I used that, and then finally I bought myself a real desk, and this was a pretty good one to get. And then the reason I like it so much is because of these drawers. They're really shallow, which makes them really nice for sewing supplies because most sewing supplies are pretty small. So to be able to see any of them, you really want a shallow drawer. And this has huge shallow drawers that I have separated with a bunch of these dumb little thingies. And this one houses most of the stuff for both of my machines. So I have bobbins over here. I have pre-wound bobbins, but I do also have specific FOF branded empty bobbins because the FOF needs specific bobbins. So that's what these are. And then I have a mask pattern for Joe. COVID, right, everybody? Anyway, and then I also have like all my needles and all the feet for the brother. The feet for the FOF actually fit in the FOF, so they're not in here. And then I have like hand needles and stuff and trash. And so I keep a lot of the sewing stuff in here. The rest of my supplies, I will show you, they're in a little cabinet over here that I really like. The reason why I have this tablecloth on top of it is because, I mean, I've owned this for a couple years and I have damaged the out of the top of this desk by just like eating on top of it and having hot food on the desk. So it's not cute. So I put this cute pink gingham tablecloth on top of it. I do recommend putting some fabric on top of your sewing desk because if you're like me and you don't always put your pins back and then your pins end up sitting on the desk and falling on the floor, and you're also like me and you have camera equipment in your sewing room and you don't like magnets in your sewing room, this is a good way that is magnet free to keep your pins from falling on the floor because they'll generally stay kind of on the fabric and not really like get on the floor. Oh, and then this drawer is kind of a catch-all. I can't open it that far because of the serger. This one's not organized and it's because I don't open it that much. But then on top of the desk we have the one and only, my beautiful, my wonderful, my grandmother's FOF. And I cannot talk about this machine too much without getting like really emotional, so I'll save you from that. Moving on to the less emotional thing on the table. This is a 10-year-old MacBook Pro that I don't really use. I had been using it for audio. If you're interested, the microphone I had been using before was a USB microphone, and I used to hook it up to this computer and use Audacity, which is a free audio recording program, and that worked really well. The audio quality was pretty good, but having a cord go back behind me to the laptop and also having to start a new Audacity file every time I was recording was really annoying. The thing I'm holding in my hand right now is a real audio recorder with a microphone that came with it. My boyfriend actually got me this for Christmas. We love him. Thank you, Joe. But yeah, that's why this is here. It was serving basically as an audio recorder, and you can tell it's 10 years old because it still has a USB port. I took this thing to college with me. Anyway, behind that we have my Fomore Cutlery heirloom scissors before becoming the world's first NCC Team USA. And then over here I have a little in progress bin, so every time I have a project and I like get the fabric for it, I will put it in the bin. Every time I have a finished piece for that, it will go in the bin unless it's massive like Miku's skirts. But like Miku's corset lived in here for like 6 months. But yeah, I highly recommend this because I tend to lose things. So it's really easy when, you know, I start a new project and I'm ordering stuff and stuff comes in, but I'm not ready to use it yet. It's really convenient to just put it in this bin. Nothing is in this bin right now because I actually packed up all of my Sakizo stuff in a single bag. So I basically did this, but with like a TJ Maxx bag. And then over here I have a bunch of alpacas. The reason why I have so many alpacas is because for years and years and years, I had a tradition that every con I went to, I would try to buy an alpaca. I usually bought little ones. So that's why I have that bag that's full of tiny alpacas. This was the first one. They don't all have names, but this one has a name because he was first. This was Morton. He's named after the Koopaling. They're like harder to find nowadays. I don't know why. That's the Mikeh. I do really love this desk. It has served me well for so many years. It's IKEA and it's like $100. And it makes a really, really good sewing desk. So I highly recommend this one. The other thing I highly recommend is this thing I have down here. So I'm gonna move the camera again. Okay, welcome back to the floor. So this is the thing I really, really like and I really recommend. This one is not IKEA, it's from Amazon, but not only is this serving as my serger table, it also has most of my tools in it. And like I said, I really like shallow drawers for sewing supplies, and this is a whole thing of shallow drawers. So the first one is labeled scissors, and it does have all my scissors in it. It also has all my X-Acto knives and rotary cutters, and yes, I have a lot of scissors because I have, you know, these are paper cutting scissors, these are fabric scissors, I have 2 pairs of pinking shears. I have these little, look at these little baby ones I bought these from Famore with my gift card that I got for winning at Hall Mat. But yeah, those are my scissors. And then glues and pens is this glue. There's hot glue sticks back here, and then it's mostly pens. I have Sharpies, my heat erase pens, and then I also have like my fray check in here. When I have other kinds of glues, they're supposed to go in here. Some of them are missing. So the next thing is my thread drawer. Now this doesn't look super organized or pretty, but let me tell you why this is better than those like wall hanging thread pegboards. You actually really don't want to use those because if your thread is sitting out on the wall, it's gonna get dust on it, and when your thread gets dusty and old, it just makes it sheer and it will cause you sewing machine problems. So you want to take care of your thread. You want to have nice thread, and a good way to have nice thread is just keep it in a drawer. Yeah, I could probably do something like buy a spice rack organizer. That might be a good solution, but honestly, I can kind of see everything and it's not getting super tangly. I do organize them by brand for the most part. I have a lot of Gutermann. Gutermann is a really nice quality thread, but I have a lot of it because one of the things you'll notice when you buy thread, sometimes the thread that's wound in more of an X pattern where it's crisscrossing over, but sometimes you'll have thread that looks more like this, where it's all going straight across the spool. So thread like this works really well if your sewing machine has the thread sitting upright, because it can easily come off the spool that way. But if your sewing machine has it sit horizontally, because of the way it's wound, it's a little harder for the thread to come off when it's horizontal like this. So for example, the thread on my Brother machine can only sit horizontally. So the Coates and Clark's thread does not work well with the Brother machine. It works fine on my Pfaff because it can actually do either way. So I have a lot of Gutermann because when the thread is wound crisscross like this, if the thread is sitting horizontally, it doesn't have any problems getting off the spool, meaning Gutermann works way better on my Brother than Coates and Clark's does. The next drawer is literally just full of horsehair braid. Yeah, room to grow, I guess. And then this bottom one is documents, so I'm not gonna show that to you. But yeah, I really love this thing. I really think it helps me keep me organized. I used to use, what used to be sitting here is this like, can you even see it? One of these plasticky clothing bins from like Walmart. It still has stuff in it. I still put stuff in there, but that used to have all of this stuff in it, and it just didn't work because the bins are just they're too deep. So everything gets piled up on top of itself, whereas this, you can't really pile it up to the point where you can't see anything. So love this, highly recommend shallow drawer sets of drawers and not plasticky Walmart-y drawers. Yeah, over here in this little crack, I have my big quilting rulers. If you do not own one of these, get one. They are so nice. They're so great. Just get one, trust me. They're kind of expensive, but they're worth it, and they'll last a long time if you treat them right. Okay, so that is basically the entirety of this corner of the room. So now I'll show you the rest of the room, which is not much. It's mostly my camera equipment. Okay, So here's the room at large. I'll briefly show you some of my camera equipment. So this is my camera. I cannot take this to cons to film like vlogs or the interview video I just did with this for a variety of reasons. Hi, this is Tassel. So this is a Canon Rebel T5i. It's about 10 years old. It's a DSLR. It's a cropped sensor DSLR, so that basically means that the sensor inside of it is a little smaller, which means that if this was a full frame camera, I could get more of the frame. I don't know how to explain that. But yeah, I got this camera to do photography in college. I took a couple of photography classes in college. I was actually almost a photo minor. This camera does fine for what I'm using it for, but I will be upgrading very soon because, like I said, I can't really take this to cons. The biggest reason is because this camera has no internal stabilization. None. It is just gonna be shaky as so that's why it lives on the tripod, and it will always live on the tripod. But you might be like, but Sarah, you own a gimbal. Well, this camera is mostly a photography camera, and it's also a 10-year-old photography camera. And while it does have video capabilities to take 1080p video, its autofocus is terrible. I also only have 2 lenses for it. I have this one, which is the kit lens. It's a zoom lens, kit lens, meaning it's the one that came with the camera. It's an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. God, I don't know how much I should explain about camera stuff. The smaller the number, the wider the angle the lens captures. So 18 millimeter is good for the wide shot that I get of me sitting at the desk. But I also have this little prime lens, and a prime lens means that it only has one focal length. This one is a zoom lens, which means it can change focal length, and it can go up to a 55 millimeter focal length, but it doesn't have a very low aperture, which this one does. This is a 50 millimeter. This is called, most people call this thing the Nifty 50. I got it for 50 bucks used, and it's absolutely wonderful. If you have a Canon crop sensor DSLR and you don't have a Nifty 50, absolutely get one. This one is what I use for the really close-up shots of the sewing machine, so that's how I get that really cool like bokeh blurred background with that really shallow depth of field. That's what this is. Basically, if you want a really blurred background with a DSLR, you need a lens that has a really wide aperture, like 1.8. When we talk aperture, the lower the number, the wider it is. Right? Okay. Basically, this is a very nice camera. I just cannot use it for stuff at cons. I also will be eventually upgrading to a nicer camera because while this can take video, it cannot do 4K like my iPhone can, which my iPhone is currently recording in 4K. And if you're curious as to why that matters, it's because if I am recording something in 4K, but I output it at 1080p, if I have the footage at 4K, I can crop the footage down to 1080p and I don't lose any quality. So if I want to do things like punch into my face, which I'm sure I just did, I can't really do that on something like this camera because when I do that, the quality will go down lower than 1080p, which just isn't cute, is it? I do it anyway, but it's not cute. Anyway, that's the camera. And then in terms of lights, I have these 2 lights. These are LED panel lights. They're by Newer. They're just really nice professional lights. I have this other one right here. And then in terms of tripods, I have this old shitty rickety tripod that this camera sits on. And I still use this one even though I have this big one because this one is super lightweight. And yes, every single time I want a shot of the sewing machine, I have to switch lenses on my camera, move the entire tripod, and then film the sewing machine, and then reset the whole thing so I can film myself again. Yeah, and then I do have this. This is how I get the top-down angle in the videos. It's just a really tall, really solid tripod. This one also is from Newer, and you can see I have a phone holder on the top there because I just put my phone up there. And my phone is what records the table in the videos. So now I'll finally show you the rest of the room. So there's my side, my desks, all my stuff. I didn't really show you up here, but there's a bin of patterns, my grommet setter, and then a bunch of stuff. And I do keep my other lens up there. And then over there, I have my awards and a screen print that I did in college, art that I've gotten at cons, that light stick. I have a bunny bag up there that I never use. So if we keep turning around, you can see my walls are covered in my props. And then of course this is Joe's stuff. Won't show you that because his stuff is messy. But that is my award-winning scythe from winning in Kentucky-Renko at Hallmat in 2019. That whole thing is EVA foam, and I just love it. I love this. It's one of my favorite props. It's so creepy and gross, And then we have Mona's hat up there. She looks lovely. She's just on a hook on the back of the door. And then I have this mirror that you've seen before. I was using this to hold the gimbal. Ignore that thing. Here's the closet. The closet is mostly packed up, but if you're wondering how I store Miku's pigtails, that is how. They're just on a hanger. That's how. But yeah, this used to be a lot messier, but I've mostly packed it up. Most of my cosplays are already in those boxes. But then over here, I have, these are my other award-winning props. These are my pink diamond. Oh, this is a cat camera. This is what we use to watch the cats when we're at cons. But yeah, these are my gem destabilizers, and if you're like, Sarah, I've seen Steven Universe and Pink Diamond never goddamn had gem destabilizers. Well, I fucking made Pink Diamond when all we had was one shot of her and a flashback where she was holding gem destabilizers. So I fucking made gem destabilizers, okay? And they are Warbler covered in resin, and I did that old fishnets trick for that part, and then that's actually real leather, painted reclaimed leather that I got at a thrift store. And then the fork is here. The fork is kind of just hanging out right now because I know I'm moving and I need to pack it up, but there's the fork. Up there is Rose Quartz's sword. I have She-Ra's sword over here. This is Undyne's spear, who's not hanging up. Oh, I should probably tell you how I hung these up, shouldn't I? So they're all kind of just on nails, and then I have like wire tied around them in like a strategic spot. They're just on wire and nails, that's it. It's nothing special. But yeah, Undyne's spear is not hanging, but it's right here. This is very, very old. And then I have these that I made during the pandemic. That one is a 3D print. I did not sculpt that myself, but that one is EVA foam that I did do myself. And then way up at the top we have Madoka's bow, and my favorite prop, Rose Quartz's shield. And it's my favorite prop because it's the last prop I ever made at my parents' house before I like graduated college and left. So it's like, I don't know, kind of the last piece of before I was a full adult. So it has that sort of happy memory to it. I can't really show you my closet now because I already packed it up, but everything was kind of just hanging in here and it was messy. But that big bag on the top, and actually this bag down here, so this is what I keep Ranko in. She's in Christmas wreath bags. It's actually also what I keep my Sakizo in, or the Sakizo that's finished. But yeah, those are her wings in that one, and then I have put her other one out here that has the actual costume in it, along with Garuka right there, because these are actually going to go get displayed in the Quilt and Sewing Expo, which will probably already have happened by the time this goes up, so I'm sorry, but I was at the Sewing Expo. But yeah, this is the room. It's really small, and I share it with another person, but I really wanted to show you this room before I uproot the whole thing because I feel like I did a lot with a very little space, and I just wanted to show y'all that because, you know, we see all these people on YouTube, and, you know, I'm gonna be one of them soon that has a dedicated craft room. But for a lot of us, we start sewing on the floor and we all cut on the floor and we don't have dedicated spaces. And so I thought it was really important that before I get my fancy singular room that is dedicated to one thing, that I show you what you can do with just a little corner. And it feels a little bittersweet to say goodbye to this room because this is where I finally had the courage to do YouTube, and I've been so incredibly lucky to have a partner who's not sitting in his chair, but that lets me do this stuff and take up this much space in a room where he works. Like, he works his regular job in this room. But yeah, this won't be the last time you'll see this room. There's still some stuff that I filmed like last year that I just haven't gotten to edit yet that you'll get eventually. But for the most part, this is goodbye to this little room, and I'm sad to see it go, but I am absolutely ecstatic to have my own craft room. But that's all I got for this video. You should break a needle on that like button for me, and if you want to support the channel, you can check out my Patreon, but if you're just liking, watching, commenting, or subscribing, you're supporting the channel too. So thank you. Bye! While I thank the patrons, do you want to see a preview of the new craft room? Oh, and by the way, if you want to see a full tour of the new craft room, I have uploaded a whole video of that over on Patreon for all tier levels of patrons. Thank you to the patrons! Flair, Claudia, Katie, Snot Muncher, Allison, Queen Platypus, Riri Rose 16, Taylor B, Tessa Bow, Haley, Alyssa, Mac, Akima Aki, Chibi Lise, Rainbow Lola, Gloom Shroom, Infinite Salad, Meba, Kelly, Hubasta, Mads, Ollie B, The King Theory, Magda, Paint It So, Sky, Ash, Sleepy Ellie, Audrey, Allison, Spacey Stitches, Foxy McLoxy, Sunny, Coco Yumi, Skasa, Ariana, Articus, Minor, Raina, Food Penguin, Emmy, Alyssa, Stephanie, Katie, Experimental Blue, Toby, Shelman, Alice, Lena Sostra, Haley, Evandaria, Samantha, Faybound, Adriana, Amber, Kim, Fennec, Emma, Kaimatsu, Block Kitty DJ, Meredith, Taylor, Sarah, Kira Draws, Cowbones, Bianca, Lunar, Gaia, Lularush Cosplay, Delos Fluffy Hair, Marcy, So Into Music, Amelia, Julian, Cam, Zen, Pin, Snip, and Claire.